Leeds United faced off against Norwich City yesterday in a match that turned out to be a little bit more dominant than a lot of people might have expected. I know, Premier League versus Championship in the FA Cup, and you might typically look at that and go, well, obviously Leeds were going to win comfortably. But coming out of that winning 3-0, not looking super threatened by Norwich at any point, whilst having a little bit of a lull in the second half, was basically fine. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a single problem with that match. And I do think it's important to learn lessons from games like these. Even though we won, you need to learn from the wins as well as the losses. So, got a nice list here of a few things that we can learn from this match. So, stick with me, it'll be a good time. Let's have a bit of a conversation. And first of all, I'm going to start at the back of the pitch. I'm going to start with Yakabiel. And I'm going to start with the fact that I honestly believe that Yakabiel is of a ridiculously high level. Yakabiel is one of those players that does the defensive side of the game well, and that's fine, and that's what you expect from a centre back. That's completely normal. But in the same way as Rodon and Strauch do, he contributes so much going forwards as well. We knew about the stuff that he does at set pieces. That's fine, that's good, that's all well and dandy. However, it's the ball progression stuff that he does as well that is key. I think it was Beale's just scything ball up the middle that was caught up by Nonto for the Mecha goal that wasn't actually a goal because Nonto decided a little bit of a cheeky handball could be fun, which is something that you don't really see too often from a lot of centre backs, that whole playmaking side of the game. And whilst at half time I was sort of saying, well, it's harsh to drop James Justin because James Justin's not done anything to deserve a dropping. At the same time, Beale is very, very firmly fighting for that very same role. And it'd be quite interesting to see what happens in the league going forward. But I think the first lesson that we need to consider is that Beale needs to be starting more, ingrain himself in that back line, and the more he's able to do that, the more we're able to grow. But the second lesson is similar to that, sort of. Well, not really, but it involves Beale, and it's looking at two other players that played in this match, and it's looking at Anton Stack, who came on and just dominated the midfield. The way that he set up that third goal is ridiculous. His sort of strength on the ball, his pace to just stay away from any defenders was frankly obscene. And Gabby Goodmanson, who gets an assist, gets a goal, was absolutely everywhere. And for me, this match was a vindication of the recruitment strategy that Leeds have followed over the past couple of seasons. A couple of seasons ago, we were in the same place as Norwich. We were playing against them in the playoff semi final. And you're thinking that puts us at a roughly equivalent point. And the fact that you can look at our squad now and you can look at their squad and you can say that, frankly, we walked over them. If we would have put out a first team, it could have been five. We didn't because FA Cup and you resting players, but we could have absolutely stomped them into the dirt. And that is ultimately telling of the power of our recruitment over the past 2 years or so. Looking at Stack and the way that he just pulled them apart, looking at Goodmanson and the way that he just was a monster down that left flank and replaced Junior Firpo. The ways that we've stepped up in comparison to where we were in the Championship is frankly ridiculous, and it is a big sort of tick in the box of the transfer strategy. I know people are frustrated with it sometimes, and a lot of people look at it and go, well, why didn't we sign XYZ player on whatever window? But for me, it's worked anyway. And this is the perfect example of this is where we were and this is where we are now, and there is a vast gap in there, and that is just filled in by recruitment. Back to the pitch for the next one, and it's specifically surrounding the wingers, and it's the fact that wingers do still have a role to play. This little lesson is brought on by primarily looking at another disallowed goal, and the one where James whips the ball in perfectly, like without a doubt, one of the best like crosses that I've seen of him in quite some time, onto Willie Nonto's head, who's gone just a little bit too early, a little touch early, which means that he's just about offside, which is a massive shame because that would have been a really really nice goal, bullet header into the back of the net. But that's a sign that I think we need wingers a little bit more. I think recently we seem to be in a position where, well, if Okafor's not fit, then I don't know if we've got the wingers to do whatever the plan is. So we just won't use wingers and it'll be Aronson behind Calvert-Lewin and then three midfielders and all this kind of stuff. And I think this match has taught us that having wingers is going to be beneficial no matter what, because James ridiculously good down that right flank caused them a lot of problems. Nonto in the same way, combined really well with Gabby Goodmanson to just keep applying pressure and make things as difficult as he feasibly could for that Norwich back line, and it worked really nicely. And it meant that, in essence, he and Goodmanson were doubling up on the right back to make sure that he couldn't make any right decisions throughout, and I think Nonto being there made things easier for Gabby. Having wingers in the system works really effectively, and hopefully that's something that Farke picks up on. Something else I hope Farke picks up on is how, for me, we kind of learned a couple of things about our situation with the forwards. The first of them being that I still don't think we've got an actual dedicated number 10 in the squad, being one of the lessons, because we saw Bonanotte again not being picked, and I think there is either a problem with him training, there is a problem with him not managing to fit in with the tactical style of the side, with his fitness, something is up with Facundo Bonanotte. Because we signed him to be this sort of transformative player that would ultimately adjust the way that we worked in terms of attacking. And you think, in theory, he's going to be a really, really good player. He was very decent last season, then earned a move to Chelsea. So you're thinking, well, he'll have a bit of quality to him. And we just keep not seeing him. In addition to that, we have Joel PIROE, who I will talk a little bit about in a minute. But again, we know he's not really a number 10. And we got Brendan Aronson, who, I'll be honest, I think I now agree that his best position's on the wing. Ultimately, we learned from this that we still need to sign a number 10, and Bonanotte wasn't the 10 that we needed in the winter. And whilst it would have been nice if it was, whilst it would have saved us a lot of time and a lot of effort, that search is going to have to continue, and I hope that it's taught the board that what we ultimately need is to invest big in a 10, because then that just solves the problem for a while. And if we're not able to solve it for a extended period, if we get someone in on loan and they don't quite do the job, then we'll just have the same conversation in a few months, and I really don't want to do that. And then the final one of the lessons is that, for me, Joel PIROE doesn't really have a place at Leeds United anymore. And that feels like a harsh way of putting it, because he did score. But if you have a look at the system, and you have a look at, when it comes to the number 9, you've got DCL, who is undoubtedly the first choice because of a very, very, very good number 9. And then you got Mecha behind him, who was a menace throughout the match. Honestly, should have had a penalty because he was shoved in the back when having a very, very good chance to score a goal. Got himself an assist. Just caused problems constantly. Very, 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 very good forward. So PIROE would be third choice number 9 at best. And then you've got to consider the fact that Matteo might be coming back next year, and you've got to consider the fact that Harry Gray will probably be coming back next year. Makes things a little bit more complicated. So you're looking at, well, is PIROE a 10? PIROE's not a 10 either, because there were so many bits of this match where I was just like, is PIROE on the pitch? Because he didn't really link up play much. Didn't really hold the ball and dribble and carry it at all. Defensively, he did a little bit. He dropped in a bit, but still not as much as you'd expect from a 10 if Aronson is playing there, for example. For me, whilst PIROE did incredible stuff for us last season, don't get me wrong, big fan of him last year, we've had to change the way that we play, and he doesn't fit that. And I think this match sort of showed it. And yeah, he scored a goal, fantastic. But that's whilst Norwich were desperately throwing everything at us and just completely losing their shape. And it was a reasonably easy chance. Mecha does a significant amount of the work to draw all the defenders towards him. Stack's the one that progresses us from our half into theirs. And then PIROE, one touch finish, which is really, really nice. But he's still the kind of player that is effectively an artillery gun, that you need to wheel to the right place, point him at where you need him to shoot, and then say, bang. And you can't do that in the Premier League, really. So I think one of the main lessons is PIROE not long for this club, which is a shame. I think he might have scored his final goal for Leeds United today. But that's the final lesson. So to run through it, Biol needs to start more. The recruitment, really good. Wingers, involve them more. We still don't have a number 10, and PIROE probably done. But that was the lessons learned from Leeds versus Norwich. a little bit of a new format kind of deal. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, pop a like on the video, subscribe, all that fun stuff. This was my third attempt at recording this, and my cold has gotten worse and worse as I've done them, so sorry if I sound a little bit weird. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. Toodaloo.